He thought he had it all control. Elijah Martin, the billionaire real estate tycoon, walked into City General Hospital with a secret on his arm, his mistress Chloe. He expected a quick visit, a few bribes for discretion, and a quiet exit. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. Just as he turned the corner, the world stopped. There, amidst the chaos of the emergency room, wasn't the docile, pampered wife he thought he left at home. It was his pregnant wife Amelia, covered in blood, that wasn't hers, screaming and physically fighting 2 security guards. Elijah froze his double life, shattering in a single heartbeat. But what he saw next wouldn't just ruin his marriage. It would threaten to destroy everything he had ever built. You think you know drama? You have no idea what's coming. The automatic doors of St. Jude's Medical Center hissed open, admitting a gust of sterile, conditioned air that clashed with the humid July heat outside. Elijah Martin adjusted the cuffs of his bespoke Italian suit, his jaw set in a line of irritation. Beside him, Chloe clung to his bicep, whimpering theatrically. "Elijah, it hurts," she whined, lifting her left foot slightly off the polished tile. "I think I broke it. Seriously, that curb came out of nowhere. We'll get it looked at, Chloe. Keep your voice down," Elijah murmured, his eyes scanning the lobby. He wasn't worried about the cost. He owned the building's west wing. He was worried about being seen. Elijah was the face of Martin Industries, a man who graced the cover of Forbes as the Family Man of the Year just last month. Being spotted in the ER at 11:00 p.m. with a 24-year-old Instagram model who wasn't his wife was not part of the PR strategy. "I need a wheelchair," Chloe pouted, her grip tightening, "and a private room. I can't be out here with these people." Elijah signaled a nurse with a sharp flick of his finger. "Private suite. Dr. Paven, now." The nurse, recognizing the billionaire, immediately nodded with widened eyes. "Of course, Mr. Martin. Right away." As Chloe was ushered into a wheelchair, preening at the attention, Elijah hung back to check his phone. No missed calls from home. Good. Amelia, his wife of 5 years, was supposed to be at their Hamptons estate, likely asleep or knitting one of those endless baby blankets. She was 8 months pregnant, swollen, tired, and in Elijah's mind, dreadfully boring. She was the safe harbor he returned to. But Chloe was the storm he chased. "Mr. Martin," the nurse returned, looking flustered. "Dr. Paven is currently in a trauma situation in the public wing. It might be a moment." Elijah scoffed. "Trauma I pay for the platinum tier specifically to avoid waiting. Where is he?" "He's down the hall, sir. In the general ER. It's chaotic tonight." Elijah strode past the nurse, annoyance flaring. He would drag Paven out himself if he had to. Chloe's sprained ankle, which he suspected was merely a bruise, needed to be treated so he could get her back to her condo and return to his own bed before dawn. He walked briskly down the connecting corridor that separated the plush-carpeted VIP section from the linoleum-floored general ER. The noise level rose instantly. The beep of monitors, the crying of children, the shouting of overworked staff. The smell changed, too, from lavender sanitizer to sweat copper and fear. Elijah wrinkled his nose, scanning the crowd for Dr. Paven's silver hair. He spotted the doctor near the nurse's station, but Paven wasn't moving. He was staring at something. Elijah followed his gaze, and then his legs simply stopped working. In the center of the intake area, a violent scuffle was unfolding. 2 burly hospital security guards were grappling with a woman. She was small, disheveled, and wearing a stained, oversized t-shirt and sweatpants. "Get your hands off me," the woman screamed. her voice cracking with raw desperation. "He needs help. You can't just leave him there." Elijah felt the blood drain from his face. He knew that voice. It was the voice that usually whispered good night or asked if he wanted tea. It was Amelia. But it wasn't the Amelia he knew. This woman was a wild animal. Her hair was matted to her forehead with sweat. Her hands were covered in bright red blood. And she wasn't in the Hamptons. She was here heavily pregnant, her belly pressed against the security guard as she tried to shove past him toward a gurney where a ragged-looking homeless man lay convulsing. "Ma'am, you need to calm down or we will restrain you," the guard shouted, grabbing Amelia's arm roughly. "Don't touch me!" Amelia shrieked, twisting away with a ferocity Elijah had never seen. She swung her handbag, striking the guard on the shoulder. "He's going into cardiac arrest. Look at the monitor. Dr. Pavan, do something." Elijah stood paralyzed behind a pillar. This was his wife. The woman who apologized when she bumped into furniture. She was currently fighting two men twice her size, screaming commands at his personal physician, covered in blood. "Amelia." He whispered the name, dying on his lips. Chloe, having hobbled up behind him on crutches she had miraculously acquired, followed his gaze. "Who is that crazy lady? God, look at her stomach. She's going to pop." Elijah didn't answer. He watched as the guard lost his patience. He twisted Amelia's arm behind her back, forcing her toward the wall. Amelia cried out in pain, her knees buckling her large belly, hitting the side of a plastic chair. The sound of her impact, a dull thud, snapped Elijah out of his trance. "Hey!" Elijah roared. The sound tore through the ER, silencing the immediate area. He sprinted across the linoleum, the heels of his Italian shoes clacking like gunshots. He reached the guard and shoved him hard in the chest. "Get your hands off her!" The guard stumbled back, hand reaching for his taser. "Sir, step back. This is a restricted—" "I said get off her." Elijah grabbed the guard's badge. "I'm Elijah Martin. I own this wing, and I will have your job, your pension, and your house if you touch her again." The guard froze. The name registered. Elijah turned to Amelia, his heart hammering against his ribs. He reached out to steady her. "Amelia, what the hell is going on? What are you doing here?" Amelia looked up. Her eyes were wild, dilated with adrenaline. For a second, she didn't seem to recognize him. Then the recognition hit, and her face crumpled, not with relief, but with horror. Her eyes darted over Elijah's shoulder to where Chloe stood, watching with a mixture of boredom and curiosity. "Elijah," Amelia panted, clutching her stomach. You're supposed to be in Tokyo." Elijah blanched. He had told her he was flying to Tokyo for a merger. The flight was delayed. I came for a checkup." He lied poorly. "Never mind that. Why are you fighting security? Why are you covered in blood?" Amelia didn't answer him. She spun back to Dr. Pavan. "The patient ventricular fibrillation. Shock him, damn it." Dr. Pavan looked from Elijah to Amelia, bewildered. "Mrs. Martin, he's an indigent John Doe. We have protocols." "Protocol." Amelia lunged forward, grabbing the defibrillator paddles from the crash cart herself. "He's dying." "Amelia, stop." Elijah grabbed her wrist. "You are pregnant. You're hysterical." She whipped her head around her eyes, blazing with a fire that terrified him. "Let go, Elijah." It wasn't a request. It was a command. And for the first time in their marriage, Elijah Martin obeyed. He let go. Amelia charged the bed, placed the paddles on the homeless man's chest, and yelled, "Clear!" The body on the gurney jerked. The flatline tone on the monitor stuttered, then beeped. Once, twice a rhythm. The ER fell silent. Amelia slumped against the gurney, gasping for air, her hands trembling as she wiped a smear of blood from her cheek. She looked at the homeless man, then slowly turned her gaze back to Elijah. And then she looked past him, locking eyes with Chloe. Chloe waved awkwardly. "Hi, I'm Chloe. Is that real blood?" Elijah closed his eyes. The glass house he had built was coming down, and the shards were about to cut deep. The silence in the ER was suffocating. Dr. Parvin cleared his throat, signaling the nurses to take over the stabilized patient. He approached Elijah cautiously. "Mr. Martin, I wasn't aware Mrs. Martin had medical training." Elijah stared at his wife. She was leaning against the wall now, one hand protectively over her bump, the other trembling at her side. "Neither was I," he muttered. He walked over to her. The smell of copper was strong. "Amelia," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Explain. Now." Amelia looked up. The fire was gone, replaced by a wall of exhaustion. She didn't look at Chloe anymore. She looked at Elijah with a profound sadness that unsettled him more than the anger had. "I can't do this here, Elijah," she whispered. "I need to sit down. The baby." "We are going to the VIP suite," Elijah commanded. He turned to Pavan. "Get her a wheelchair. Now." As they moved toward the VIP wing, the dynamic was grotesque. Elijah walked in the center. On his left, his mistress limping on a barely injured ankle. On his right, his wife wheeled by a nurse covered in a stranger's blood. Once inside the private suite, Elijah dismissed the staff. He closed the door and locked it. "Who is she?" Amelia asked. Her voice was flat. She was wiping her hands with a wet wipe she'd pulled from her pocket. Elijah stiffened. "She's an intern from the firm." She tripped. Amelia laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. "An intern, in a cocktail dress at midnight, wearing the diamond bracelet I saw in your briefcase last week." Elijah looked at Chloe's wrist. The bracelet glittered under the fluorescent lights. He had told Amelia it was a commission for a client. "Amelia, don't change the subject," Elijah snapped, deflection being his best defense. "You are supposed to be in the Hamptons. Instead, I find you brawling in a public ER with security guards. Do you have any idea what this will do to the stock price if the press gets wind of this Martin matriarch assault staff? Are you insane?" "I was saving a life," Amelia said quietly. "You are not a doctor," Elijah shouted. "You are a graphic designer who hasn't worked in 3 years." Amelia stood up slowly. She was heavy with his child, yet she stood with a dignity that made her seem taller than him. She reached into her stained sweatpants and pulled out a badge. She tossed it onto the bed. Elijah picked it up. It was an ID card. Jude's Medical Center. Dr. Amelia Martin, Senior Resident Trauma Surgery. Elijah stared at the card. The photo was recent. What is this?" "I never stopped working, Elijah," she said. "I never went to the Hamptons on weekends. I came here. I finished my residency 6 months ago. I'm a surgeon." Elijah's mouth opened, but no words came out. You lied to me for 3 years. You never asked." Amelia's voice rose, cracking. "You come home at 2 a.m. You leave at 6 a.m. You think I'm boring. You think I sit around buying baby clothes. I save gunshot victims, Elijah. I pull people out of car wrecks. And I didn't tell you because I knew you'd hate it. You wanted a trophy. You wanted a quiet little wife to wear on your arm." She gestured to Chloe, who was busy texting on the sofa, seemingly bored by the drama. Like her. Hey, Chloe looked up. I'm not a trophy. I'm an influencer. Shut up, Chloe, Elijah hissed. He turned back to Amelia, his mind reeling. The betrayal tasted bitter, mostly because it mirrored his own. So tonight, that man. I was in the volunteer clinic downstairs. I saw him collapse. No one was moving fast enough. They saw a homeless junkie. I saw a patient. Amelia winced, grabbing her side. A flicker of pain crossed her face. You put our child in danger, Elijah said, his voice dropping to a whisper. You were fighting a guard. You could have been hit in the stomach. I know, Amelia whispered, tears finally spilling over. I know, but I couldn't let him die. You care more about a stranger than our family, Elijah accused, seizing the moral high ground he desperately needed. Family! Amelia stepped closer to him. The smell of her sweat and antiseptic was overwhelming. Elijah, look at me. Look at who is in this room. You brought your mistress to the hospital where your wife works. You didn't know I worked here. You didn't know I was in town. You didn't know me. She poked him hard in the chest. Don't you dare talk to me about family. Suddenly, Amelia gasped. Her hands flew to her belly. Her face went grey. Amelia. Elijah's anger vanished instantly. It's too early, she whispered. A dark stain began to spread on the grey sweatpants between her legs. Doctor! Elijah screamed at the closed door. Help, someone, help! Chloe stood up, looking horrified. Is the baby coming? The door burst open. Dr. Pavan rushed in, followed by 2 nurses. They took one look at Amelia and the blood. Placental abruption. Amelia diagnosed herself through gritted teeth, her surgeon's brain overriding the panic. Get the gurney. OR 1. Now. As they lifted her onto the stretcher, she grabbed Elijah's hand. Her grip was iron. If you have to choose, she gasped, her eyes locking onto his. If it comes down to me or the baby, you choose the baby. Do you hear me, Elijah? You choose the baby. Amelia, no. Promise me, she screamed as they wheeled her out. I promise, Elijah yelled, running alongside the gurney. They hit the double doors of the surgery wing. A nurse held up a hand. Sir, you can't go past here. That's my wife. Wait here. The doors swung shut. Elijah was left standing in the hallway, alone. He looked down at his hand. It was stained with Amelia's blood. Elijah. He turned. Chloe was standing there, leaning on her crutches. She looked small, petty, and insignificant. Maybe we should go, she suggested. This looks serious. Elijah looked at her. Really looked at her. He saw the shallowness in her eyes, the selfishness in her posture. And then he thought of Amelia fighting the guard, starting a heart, diagnosing herself while bleeding out. Get out, Elijah said. What? Get out of here, Chloe. Get out of my life. If I see you again, I'll destroy you. Chloe's jaw dropped. She opened her mouth to argue, saw the look in his eyes, a look of pure, unadulterated hatred, and turned around. She hobbled away as fast as her crutches would take her. Elijah sank onto the floor of the hallway, putting his head in his bloody hands. He was the billionaire who owned the city, but sitting there, waiting to hear if his wife and child would survive the night, he had never felt so poor. The hallway outside the operating wing was painted a soothing, muted beige, a color designed to keep people calm. It wasn't working. To Elijah, the walls felt like they were closing in, pressing against his temples with the weight of a collapsing skyscraper. He paced the length of the corridor, his footsteps heavy. Every time the double doors swung open, his heart lurched, slamming against his ribs, only to sink when a nurse walked out carrying a tray of instruments or a bag of fluids, ignoring him completely. He checked his watch. 42 minutes. It had been 42 minutes since they wheeled Amelia away. In the world of trauma surgery, 42 minutes was a lifetime. It was enough time for a heart to stop, for a brain to starve, for a future to be rewritten. Elijah sat down on the uncomfortable plastic chair, putting his head in his hands. The blood on his palms had dried to a rusty, flaky crust. He rubbed his thumb against his fingers, feeling the grit of it. It was a visceral reminder of his own ignorance. She's a surgeon, he thought, the words still sounding foreign in his mind. My wife cuts people open for a living. He tried to reconcile the image of Amelia at home, sitting on their plush velvet sofa, reading a romance novel, complaining about the caterer for their anniversary party, with the woman who had commanded the ER floor like a general, the woman who had fought a security guard, the woman who had told him to choose the baby. A vibrating buzz in his pocket shattered his thoughts. He pulled out his phone. It was a text from Chloe. "Are you coming back? I'm hungry. And my ankle really throbs. You promised we'd go to Le Bernardin tonight." Elijah stared at the screen. The sheer audacity, the vapid selfishness of it, made bile rise in his throat. He typed a reply, his fingers trembling with rage. "Don't text me. Don't call me. The locks on the condo are being changed in the morning. Your allowance is cut. Disappear, Chloe, before I make you disappear." He hit send and then blocked the number. He felt a fleeting moment of satisfaction, quickly swallowed by the crushing dread of the hospital corridor. The double doors swung open again. This time it was Dr. Paven. He wasn't wearing his white coat anymore. He was in blue scrubs, a surgical mask hanging loosely around his neck. He looked exhausted. Elijah scrambled to his feet. "Doctor, is she—" Paven didn't smile. He walked over to Elijah, pulling off his surgical cap. "It was messy, Mr. Martin. A grade 3 abruption. She lost nearly 2 liters of blood before we could control the hemorrhage." "Is she alive?" Elijah demanded, his voice cracking. "She is," Paven said, and Elijah felt his knees go weak with relief. "She's in the ICU. We had to perform an emergency hysterectomy to save her life. The bleeding wouldn't stop." The words hit Elijah like a physical blow. Hysterectomy. No more children. This baby, the one he had barely asked about during the pregnancy because he was too busy merging companies, was it? "And the baby?" Elijah asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. "A boy," Paven said softly. 4 pounds, 6 ounces. He's in the NICU. He suffered some oxygen deprivation during the abruption. We've got him on a ventilator and we're cooling his body to minimize potential brain swelling. The next 24 hours are critical." Elijah nodded dumbly. A son. He had a son. And his son was fighting for his life in a plastic box because Elijah had stressed Amelia out. Because Elijah had brought his mistress to the one place Amelia couldn't hide. "Can I see her?" "Briefly," Paven said. "She's sedated. But Mr. Martin, before you go in there, you should know something." "What?" Paven reached into his scrub pocket and pulled out a small, blood-spattered envelope. She had this taped to her stomach, under her clothes. We found it when we prepped her. Elijah took the envelope. It was warm. It smelled of iron and sweat. On the front, in Amelia's neat, looping handwriting, was a single word, Elijah. "She must have known something was wrong," Paven said quietly. "Or she was planning something. I'll give you a moment." Elijah waited until the doctor walked away. His hands shook as he tore open the envelope. Inside was a single folded sheet of hospital stationery. Elijah, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. I don't know if it's the baby or me, but I have a feeling I won't be able to say this to your face. I know about Chloe. I've known for 6 months. I know about the apartment on 5th. I know about the business trips to Cabo. I didn't say anything because I wanted our son to have a father. I wanted to believe that the man I married, the man who used to dream of building schools, not just buying them, was still in there somewhere. I kept my job a secret because it was the only thing that was mine. The only place where I wasn't Elijah Martin's wife, but just Dr. Martin, where people respected me for what I did, not what I wore. I was afraid if you knew you'd take that away from me too. You'd say it was unseemly or too dangerous. I was leaving you, Elijah. The movers were scheduled for Tuesday. I was going to take the baby and go to my sister's in Vermont. I wanted to give you one last chance to be decent, to come clean. You didn't. If I die, tell our son I loved him. If I live, pray that I forgive you. Because right now I don't think I can. Elijah crumpled the letter in his fist, tears hot and stinging in his eyes. He leaned his forehead against the cool wall and let out a guttural sob that echoed down the empty corridor. He had thought he was the player moving pieces on a board. He realized now he had been playing a game he had already lost months ago. Elijah couldn't bring himself to go into the ICU yet. The shame was a physical weight anchoring him to the floor. He needed to do something. He needed to be useful. He told the nurses he was going home to get things for the baby clothes, a blanket, anything to pretend he was a father. He drove his Aston Martin back to the estate in a daze. The city lights blurred into streaks of neon, mirroring the chaos in his mind. When he pulled into the long gravel driveway of their Greenwich mansion, the house looked different. It wasn't a home. It was a mausoleum. Dark, cold, imposing. He unlocked the front door and stepped into the foyer. The silence was deafening. Usually there was soft jazz playing, or the smell of lilies from the vases Amelia arranged herself. Tonight the air was stale. He walked up the grand staircase, bypassing the master bedroom. He went down the hall to the guest room Amelia had converted into her office. He had never been inside. He always assumed it was where she did her online shopping or planned charity galas. He pushed the door open. It wasn't a boudoir. It was a study lined with medical textbooks. Gray's Anatomy Trauma Surgery Principles. Advanced Cardiothoracic Techniques. On the wall framed diplomas he had never seen hung proudly. Johns Hopkins Medical School. Valedictorian. He walked to the desk. It was cluttered but organized. There were patient files, redacted schedules, and a stack of notebooks. But what caught his eye was a large corkboard on the wall behind the desk. It wasn't covered in medical notes. It was covered in him. There were receipts, photos of him and Chloe at dinner, a printout of his credit card statement, highlighting jewelry purchases he hadn't given to Amelia. There was a timeline drawn in marker, tracking his lies. Deck 12. Says he's in London. GPS shows the Plaza Hotel. Jan 4. Chloe posts photo in his car. He claims he's at a board meeting. Elijah stared, his mouth dry. She hadn't just known. She had documented it with the precision of a surgeon diagnosing a disease. She had dissected his betrayal layer by layer. On the center of the desk lay a thick manila folder labeled Project Clean Break. He opened it. It was a divorce settlement, fully drafted. But it wasn't seeking his money. Wife waives right to alimony. Wife seeks full custody of the child. Wife seeks possession of the Vermont cottage. Wife requests no contact order. She didn't want his billions. She just wanted out. She wanted to be free of him so badly she was willing to walk away from a fortune. That hurt more than if she had tried to take half. It meant his money. The thing he defined his worth by was worthless to her. He sat in her leather chair, spinning it around. He saw a small velvet box on the corner of the desk. He opened it. Inside was a silver rattle. Engraved on it was a name. Leo. Leo. She had named their son. She hadn't even told him. Elijah gripped the rattle, his knuckles turning white. He looked around the room, this sanctuary of the woman he had slept beside for 5 years, but never truly met. He realized then that Amelia wasn't just the victim. She was the protagonist, and he was the villain of this story. A noise downstairs made him jump. The front door opening. "Elijah," it was a man's voice, deep authoritative. Elijah shoved the rattle into his pocket and walked out to the landing. Standing in the foyer was James Sterling, the chairman of the board for Martin Industries. Beside him was Lucas Vance, the company's head of PR. "James," Elijah called down, confused. "What are you doing here at 3 a.m.? James looked up, his face grim. "We need to talk, Elijah. Now." Elijah descended the stairs, his mind racing. "It's 3 a.m. My wife is in the ICU. My son is on a ventilator. Can this wait?" "It can't," Lucas said, stepping forward. He held up a tablet. "Have you seen the internet?" "No." Lucas tapped the screen and held it up. It was a video. A shaky vertical cell phone video taken in the ER. It showed Amelia screaming, covered in blood, fighting the guards. It showed Elijah shoving the guard. It showed Chloe standing there in her cocktail dress, looking bewildered. The title of the video, posted by a user named TruthSeeker99, had 4 million views in 3 hours. Billionaire Elijah Martin's wife saves homeless man while Mistress watches drama at St. Jude's. "It's trending worldwide," James said, his voice cold. "Twitter, TikTok, CNN. They're calling Amelia a hero. They're calling you, well, let's just say monster is the polite term." "I don't care about Twitter," Elijah lied. "You should," James countered, "because the homeless man Amelia saved, the one you were screaming at her, to leave alone." Elijah felt a pit open in his stomach. "Who is he?" "His name is Arthur Penhaligon." Elijah frowned. "The name sounds familiar." "It should," James said. "He's the missing founder of Penhaligon Pharmaceuticals. The man disappeared 10 years ago after a mental breakdown. He still owns 15% of the voting shares in the biotech firm you're trying to acquire next week." Elijah's world tilted. The junkie on the table was a billionaire in hiding. "And," Lucas added, twisting the knife, "his family has already issued a statement. They are profusely grateful to Dr. Amelia Martin for saving his life. They are looking into legal action against the hospital security, and they have publicly stated that they will block any merger with Martin Industries as long as Elijah Martin is CEO. Elijah staggered back, hitting the banister. "The board is meeting at 8 a.m., James said, buttoning his coat. "We're invoking the morals clause, Elijah. You're out. Unless what?" Elijah asked, desperate. "Unless Amelia issues a statement supporting you. Unless the hero doctor forgives the cheating husband publicly. If she stands by you, we can spin this as a complex family tragedy. If she dumps you, you'll lose the company." Elijah laughed. It was a hysterical, broken sound. She filed for divorce yesterday. She has a documented timeline of my affair. James and Lucas exchanged a look. Then you better start praying, James said, or begging, because your entire life is currently lying in a hospital bed, waking up from anesthesia. Elijah returned to the hospital at dawn. He felt like a ghost haunting his own life. The paparazzi were already swarming the entrance, their flashes popping like lightning storms against the glass doors. He had to enter through the loading dock smuggled in like contraband. He went straight to the ICU. The nurse on duty, a stern woman named Olivia, blocked his path. "She's awake," Olivia said, her arms crossed. "But she doesn't want to see you." "I'm her husband," Elijah pleaded, his arrogance completely eroded. "Please, I need to see her. I need to see my son." "The baby is stable," Olivia said, softening slightly. "You can see the baby, but Mrs. Martin gave strict instructions." "Please," Elijah whispered. "Just 5 minutes. If she tells me to leave, I will." Olivia hesitated, then sighed. 5 minutes. But if her heart rate monitors spike, I'm calling security. And this time, you won't be firing anyone. Elijah nodded and pushed open the heavy glass door. The room was dim lit only by the glowing monitors. Amelia lay in the bed, looking small and fragile amidst the tangle of tubes and wires. Her face was pale, almost translucent, but her eyes were open. They were staring at the ceiling. Elijah approached the bed slowly. "Amelia." She didn't blink. She didn't turn her head. "I told them not to let you in." "I know," Elijah said, pulling a chair close but not daring to touch her. I went home. I went into your study." That got a reaction. Amelia turned her head slowly. Her eyes were dull, devoid of the sparkle they used to have. "So you know." "I know," Elijah said. "I found the letter, the divorce papers, the rattle." "Leo," she whispered. "Leo," Elijah repeated. "It's a strong name." "He's a strong boy," she said, her voice raspy. "He survived me. He survived you." "Amelia, I'm so sorry," Elijah choked out. "I know that's not enough. I know I destroyed everything. But I need you to know. Seeing you last night, seeing you save that man, I realized I don't know you at all. And that's my biggest regret. I fell in love with a mask, and I missed the incredible woman underneath." Amelia watched him, her expression unreadable. "Is that why you're here, Elijah? To apologize, or because James Sterling called you?" Elijah flinched. She was sharp. Even heavily sedated, she was 3 steps ahead. "James came to the house," Elijah admitted. "The man you saved, Arthur Penhaligon. His family is blocking the merger. The board wants to fire me. They say if you don't support me, I lose the company." Amelia let out a soft, wheezing laugh. She winced in pain. "Karma," she whispered. "It's efficient, isn't it?" "I don't care about the company," Elijah said, surprising himself with the truth of it. "Let them take it. I care about you. I care about Leo. I'll sign the papers, Amelia. I'll give you the house, the custody, whatever you want. Just don't cut me out of his life completely. Let me earn the right to be his father." Amelia studied him. She was looking for the lie. She was looking for the angle. For the first time in years, she didn't see one. She saw a man stripped bare, terrified and humiliated. "Arthur Penhaligon," she mused. "The homeless man. Yes, you saved a billionaire." "I saved a patient," she corrected. "I didn't check his bank account." "I know," Elijah said. "That's the difference between us." The door opened. It was Lucas, the PR head, ignoring the nurse's protests. "Elijah, we have a camera crew downstairs. CNN is live. We need a statement. Mrs. Martin, if you could just sign this." He thrust a piece of paper toward the bed. Amelia looked at the paper. It was a prepared statement. "My husband is a loving man. A misunderstanding. We are united." She looked at Lucas, then at Elijah. "Give me a pen," Amelia said. Lucas eagerly handed her a pen. Elijah held his breath. Was she going to save him? After everything, Amelia took the paper. She didn't sign it. She flipped it over to the blank side. With a shaky hand, she wrote 2 sentences. She handed it back to Lucas. "Read that to the press." Lucas looked at the paper, his face falling. "Mrs. Martin, I can't read this. This destroys him." "Read it," Amelia commanded, her voice gaining that steel edge from the ER. "Or I will call them up here and say much worse." Lucas looked at Elijah helplessly. Elijah nodded. "Do what she says." Lucas sighed and left the room. "What did you write?" Elijah asked gently. Amelia closed her eyes, exhaustion taking over. "I wrote, Elijah Martin is the father of my child, and for that I will always wish him peace. But the man who runs Martin Industries is not the man who saved a life last night, I am." Elijah processed the words. It wasn't a forgiveness. It was a separation. She was separating his identity as a father from his identity as a tycoon. She was publicly stating that she was the moral center, not him. "It means you lose the merger," Amelia whispered. "It means the stock tanks. You might lose the CEO spot." "I know," Elijah said. But she opened her eyes again. "It's the truth, and if you want to be a father to Leo, you need to start living in the truth." Elijah reached out and tentatively took her hand. It was cold. She didn't pull away. "I will," he promised. "I'll start today." "Good," she murmured, drifting off to sleep. "Because your mistress just gave an interview to TMZ, claiming she's pregnant too." Elijah froze. The heart monitor beeped steadily, but his own heart stopped. "She's lying," Elijah said, panic rising. "Better hope so." Amelia mumbled, her eyes closed. "Because I'm the best trauma surgeon in the state. But even I can't fix that white mess." Elijah sat back in the chair as Amelia fell asleep. The morning sun crept through the blinds, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. He had lost his company. His reputation was in tatters. His wife might divorce him. And his mistress was dropping nuclear bombs on cable news. But as he looked at Amelia's sleeping face, and then thought of the baby boy in the next room, Elijah Martin felt a strange sensation. For the first time in his life, he didn't know what was going to happen next. And for the first time, he was ready to face it without a mask. But the story wasn't over. The fallout was just beginning. The boardroom of Martin Industries was located on the 50th floor, a glass-walled fortress that offered a panoramic view of the city Elijah used to think he owned. Today, the city looked gray, washed out by a summer rainstorm that battered the windows. Elijah sat at the head of the long mahogany table, but he had never felt smaller. The room was full. The board of directors, 12 men and women in dark suits, sat in stony silence. At the far end sat James Prescott, formerly the ally who had recruited him, and Lucas Trent, the PR crisis manager, who looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. "The stock is down 14% since the market opened," James said, breaking the silence. He didn't look at Elijah. He looked at a tablet screen. The hashtag @DrHero is trending. Unfortunately, so is #Martin adultery. We can spin the Chloe situation, Elijah said, his voice sounding hollow, even to his own ears. We can say it was a momentary lapse, a personal failing that doesn't affect my ability to lead this company. It's not just the affair, Elijah, Lucas interjected, sliding a folder across the table. It's the interview she gave to TMZ 20 minutes ago. Chloe is claiming she's pregnant. She's claiming you promised to leave Amelia for her. She's claiming you paid for her apartment with company funds. Elijah slammed his fist on the table. That is a lie. The apartment is mine. Private funds. And she is not pregnant. She's desperate. Does it matter? James asked quietly. Perception is reality, Elijah. You know that better than anyone. Right now, you are toxic. The Penhaligon family is threatening to sue us for negligence regarding Arthur's treatment before your wife stepped in. They are calling for your head. Arthur Penhaligon, Elijah muttered. The man is a recluse, a ghost. Suddenly, he's the moral arbiter of New York. He's the majority shareholder of the biotech firm we need, James snapped. And he has sent a formal letter. He will not deal with Elijah Martin. He will, however, deal with Dr. Amelia Martin. The room went dead silent. Elijah looked up, stunned. What? He wants to meet her, James said. He credits her with saving his life. He's impressed by her fortitude. He's suggesting that if we want the merger to go through, Amelia needs a seat on this board. Elijah laughed, a dry, incredulous bark. Amelia, she's a trauma surgeon. She hates business. She hates this room. She's also the most popular woman in the city right now, Lucas pointed out. Putting her on the board saves face. It saves the stock. It saves the company. And me? Elijah asked. James finally looked him in the eye. We're invoking the morals clause, Elijah. Effective immediately, you are relieved of your duties as CEO. You will retain your shares, but you will have no voting power and no operational control until the divorce is finalized and the PR storm settles. You're firing me. Elijah stood up his chair, scraping loudly against the floor. I built this company's portfolio. I doubled our revenue. You built a house of cards, James said calmly. And then you brought a match to the hospital. Security will escort you out. Elijah looked around the room. No one met his gaze. These were people he had made rich. People he had invited to his wedding. Now they were cutting him loose like a necrotic limb. He walked to the door, pausing with his hand on the brass handle. You think Amelia will agree to this? You think she'll sit at a table with the men who stabbed her husband in the back? James smiled thinly. We think she'll do whatever is best for her son. And right now, protecting his inheritance means removing you. Elijah stormed out of the building, ignoring the flashes of cameras in the lobby. He got into his car and drove. He didn't go to the hotel where he was staying. He went back to St. Jude's. He had one loose end to tie up. Chloe. He found her in the cafeteria on the lower level holding court with 2 reporters. She was wearing oversized sunglasses indoors and dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. I just want him to support our baby, Chloe was saying, her voice trembling dramatically. I know Amelia is the wife, but my child is innocent. Chloe, Elijah said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of a thunderclap. The reporters turned. Cameras clicked. Chloe froze, then plastered on a fearful expression. Elijah, please don't hurt me. Elijah ignored the theatrics. He walked right up to the table. Get up. I can't. The stress. The baby. There is no baby. A voice came from the entrance. Elijah turned. Dr. Paven was pushing a wheelchair. In it sat Amelia. She looked pale, her hospital gown swapped for a soft grey robe, but her eyes were sharp as scalpels. "Amelia," Elijah breathed, "you shouldn't be down here." "I heard there was a press conference," Amelia said, her voice raspy but steady. She rolled her chair toward Chloe. "You're Chloe, right?" Chloe looked at the woman she had mocked the night before. She looked at the bandages visible at Amelia's neckline. She shrank back. "Yes, I'm carrying Elijah's child." "No, you're not," Amelia said calmly. "You're carrying a heavy breakfast and a lot of audacity, but not a fetus." "How dare you?" Chloe shrieked. "You don't know my body." "I know medicine," Amelia said. She held up a piece of paper. "You were admitted to the ER last night for a twisted ankle. Standard protocol for any woman of childbearing age presenting with trauma is a beta-HCG urine test to ensure we don't give medication that could harm a pregnancy." The color drained from Chloe's face beneath her fake tan. "Dr. Paven ran the test." Amelia continued looking at the reporters. "It was negative, 0, not pregnant. And unless you performed a biological miracle in the last 12 hours, you are lying to the press, lying to my husband, and attempting to extort a family in crisis." The reporters turned their recorders toward Chloe. "Is this true? Are you faking it?" Chloe stammered, looking for an exit. It was a false negative, it's early." "It's over," Elijah said, stepping next to Amelia's wheelchair. He didn't touch her. He didn't feel he had the right, but he stood like a guard dog between her and the mistress. "Leave Chloe. If you ever say my name, or my wife's name again, I will sue you for defamation until you can't afford a pack of gum." Chloe scrambled up, knocking her chair over, and ran toward the exit, abandoning her injured ankle act entirely. The cafeteria was silent. Elijah looked down at Amelia. "You saved me," he whispered. "Again." Amelia didn't smile. She folded the paper in her lap. "I didn't do it for you, Elijah. I did it for Leo. I won't have his life defined by a circus before he's even off the ventilator." "The board fired me," Elijah confessed. "James took the company. They want you on the board." Amelia sighed, rubbing her temples. "I know. Arthur called me." "Arthur Penhaligon called you. He's upstairs," she said. "He wants to see us, both of us." The VIP suite on the top floor was usually reserved for heads of state. Today it was occupied by a man who looked like he had just risen from the dead. Arthur Penhaligon sat in an armchair by the window. He was clean-shaven now, his matted hair cut short, wearing a silk robe that cost more than Elijah's car. But his eyes were the same, deep, haunted, and intelligent. When Amelia wheeled in, followed by Elijah, Arthur stood up. It was a struggle for him, but he did it. "Dr. Martin," Arthur said, bowing his head. "And Martin." "Miss Penhaligon," Amelia said. "Please sit. Your heart." "My heart is fine, thanks to you," Arthur said, sinking back into the chair. "And thanks to your husband's rather aggressive intervention with the security guard. I saw the video. You have a good right hook, Mr. Martin." Elijah shifted uncomfortably. "I was protecting my wife. I didn't know who you were." "Exactly," Arthur said, pointing a finger. "That is why you are here. For 10 years I have lived on the streets of this city. I wanted to see if humanity still existed when you strip away the wealth. I wanted to see who would stop for a dirty, dying old man." He looked at Amelia. "Hundreds passed me. You stopped. You fought for me. You diagnosed a ventricular fibrillation without a machine. You are a healer, Amelia. A true one." He turned to Elijah. "And you? You are a builder. A ruthless one, perhaps. A foolish one, definitely. But when the chips were down, when your wife was in danger, you dropped your ego. You let her take command." "I lost my company today because of it," Elijah said bitterly. "You lost a title," Arthur corrected. "You can build another company. But you almost lost something much more valuable." Arthur reached for a glass of water. "I have a proposition. I am taking back control of Penhaligon Pharmaceuticals. I am firing your board, Elijah. They are vultures. I don't like vultures." Elijah's eyes widened. "You can't fire my board." "I can when I buy a controlling interest in your company." Arthur smiled. "Which I did this morning while everyone was panic selling. I now own 51% of Martin Industries." Elijah felt the floor drop out. He had been outplayed by a man who was sleeping on cardboard yesterday. "I am merging the companies," Arthur continued. "But I need a CEO, someone who knows the business, but someone who has been humbled enough to listen to his conscience." He looked at Elijah. "I'm offering you the job, Elijah, but under one condition." "What?" Elijah asked. "The chairman of the board will be Dr. Amelia Martin. She will have veto power over every ethical decision the company makes. You build the buildings, Elijah. She ensures you don't crush people to put them up." Elijah looked at Amelia. She was stunned. "I'm a surgeon," she protested. "I can't run a board." "You don't need to run it," Arthur said gently. "You just need to keep him honest. You need to be the heart. He is the muscle. Without the heart, the muscle is just meat." Amelia looked at Elijah. For the first time in 2 days, the look wasn't one of anger, but of evaluation. She was assessing him like a patient. Could he survive this? Could he change? I filed for divorce. "Arthur," Amelia said quietly. "I know," Arthur said. "Business partnerships don't require marriage. Sometimes they work better without it." Elijah knelt beside Amelia's wheelchair. He ignored Arthur. He ignored the $1 billion offer. He looked at his wife's hands, the hands that saved lives. "I don't care about the CEO job," Elijah said, his voice thick with emotion. "I really don't. If you want me to walk away, I will. I'll go to Vermont. I'll open a hardware store. Whatever you want." "I don't want you to run away," Amelia said softly. "I want you to be the man I thought I married, the man who can build things." She looked at Arthur. "I'll do it, on a trial basis, but my priority is Leo and my surgery." "Agreed," Arthur said. 1 month later, the nursery in the penthouse was painted a soft sage green. The view outside was the skyline of Manhattan glittering in the twilight. Elijah stood by the crib looking down. Leo was asleep. He was small, still catching up, but he was home. He had Elijah's chin and Amelia's eyes. The door opened. Amelia walked in. She wasn't wearing scrubs, and she wasn't wearing the designer dresses she used to wear for him. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. She looked beautiful. "He's sleeping?" she asked. "Yeah." "Finally," Elijah whispered. He stepped back to let her approach the crib. They stood side by side, looking at their son. There was a gap between them, a physical distance that mirrored the emotional one. They were living in separate apartments now. Elijah was in the guest house. The divorce was proceeding, but slowly. They were restructuring, as the lawyers called it. "How was work?" Amelia asked. "Hard," Elijah admitted. "Arthur is a tyrant, and my chairman—" He glanced at her with a small, tentative smile. She rejected 3 of my proposals today. They were bad proposals, Amelia said, not returning the smile, but her tone was light. Building a luxury mall over a community park, denied. It would have made millions, Elijah argued gently. It would have hurt thousands, Amelia countered. Denied. Elijah chuckled. It felt good to laugh. You're tough, Doc. I have to be, she said. She reached into the crib and adjusted Leo's blanket. Elijah watched her hand. He wanted to reach out and take it. He wanted to pull her close and rewind the clock. But he knew he couldn't. He had shattered the glass house. Now he had to build something new brick by brick without shortcuts. Thank you, Elijah said. Amelia looked at him. For what? For not letting me die, he said. In the ER, and afterwards, you could have let them destroy me. You could have let me destroy myself. Amelia looked at him for a long moment. The silence stretched, filled with the history of their pain and the fragile hope of their future. I'm a trauma surgeon, Elijah, she said, finally turning to the door. I don't give up on patients, even the difficult ones. She paused at the doorway. Dinner is at 6. Don't be late. Leo likes it when you read to him. I won't be late, Elijah promised. And for the first time in his life, Elijah Martin knew he wouldn't be. He watched his wife walk out of the room, then looked back at his son. He wasn't the billionaire tycoon anymore. He was just a man working the hardest job of his life, earning his way back home. And that is the story of how Elijah Martin lost everything to find the only thing that mattered. It's a brutal reminder that the people we underestimate, the quiet wives, the homeless strangers, are often the ones holding the keys to our salvation. Elijah thought power was money. Amelia taught him that power is character. Now I have to ask you. If you were Amelia, would you have given Elijah a second chance, or would you have signed those papers and walked away forever? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of drama, betrayal, and redemption, please hit that like button. It helps the channel so much. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. We upload brand new dramas every week. Until next time, stay safe, and remember, be careful who you overlook.